It's interesting to watch this and actually see, like, even though this trigger is actually pretty cute, and even though this is pretty cute, this is still trigger. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb Initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, following our last episode, I'll be talking about Little Witch Academia, The Enchanted Parade, or the second movie of Little Witch Academia. So before I start, some disclaimers. First off, sorry for everyone. I ended up getting really stuck up with work and got this really late. So episodes coming late for the audio only people. It's like 2-3 days. For people on YouTube, it's I think 1 day. Sorry about that. I'll try to get this running better. I just got a little too stuck up on work and stuff. But anyways, the second disclaimer, I'll be only talking about this movie that came out in 2015. The first movie talked about last episode, and talking about the actual series, the TV anime in the next episode. So there's that. Outside of that, we'll be talking about everything, so spoiler alerts as always. Even though this is a movie, it is not even close to being a long movie, so there's nothing like really to be spoiled about. But anyways, I need to say this just to stay safe. With that being said, let's get to the stats. So Little Witch Academia Mahou de Kabuki no Paredo, or Little Witch Academia The Enchanted Parade, is a movie that came out in October 2015, made by Studio Trigger as a follow-up to their short movie Little Witch Academia, the original one, in 2013. And in many ways, I can remember I didn't watch this back when it released, but I can say, as someone that was there at the time, that this was a signal that there would be an actual anime, something that many fans have been at that point been clamoring for. And to be fair, after watching the short in this movie, I can say that I understand why the hype was so big for this, why so many people got behind the idea of actually getting an anime of this, because being really like cut and dry about this anime is really cute, and I'll explain a bit more later. But anyways, so this is made by Trigger. It has 53 minutes of duration, so it's I would say pretty short. It is basically double what we had last time, but at the same time, last time we only had the equivalent of 1 episode. This is 2 episodes, so whatever. Outside of that, same like Trigger art style, the music's the same, and the cast that we already have all are reprising the role, from what I gather, with one, and this is, I'd say, something that I failed to comment last time, but I knew the voice, but I couldn't like put my finger on who it was. But after some research, I just found out that Diana is voiced by Hikasa Yoko, aka Maria from Sinfongear. So there's that. I knew in my instinct that her voice sounded way too familiar. I just couldn't like put my finger on it back then. Now having admittedly more lines of her talking, I can clearly say that I pinpointed it right then and there. I want to say that she has a pretty big performance, but if I'm being completely honest, anyone outside of the main 3 girls in the whole movie doesn't have that many lines altogether. These may become an ongoing theme on this review, even though I don't actually have many things to add from last time. I think that this movie did a really good job on fleshing out not only the personality of the characters and introduce a bit more characters too, but also I think that showing a bit of the let's say writing structure of the whole series as a unit. And also I think show off a bit more of the trigger DNA. I will get more into that a bit later, but let's go in order. With that being said, talking about the story really quick, the premise is really like something that everybody has already seen at some point. Being that Little Witch Academia, I would say it much like in the case of Painting Stalking, and for those who are maybe new here or don't actually know this, but the guys that work on Trigger are basically the same guys that worked on Painting Stalking as a whole, and basically, right? So they, at the very least, my vibe on watching this is that they take a big, let's say, great amount of, let's say, reference and reverence in that sense to the original not, but to the olden days of Disney animation. Talking about the Little Witch Academia specifically, I don't want to say that they take the reference from necessarily the old Disney princess movies that came out in I think Snow White came out in 1928, but it is in that bracket of time, let's say, that those movies from Snow White to Sleeping Beauty and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I feel that there is this one quality that makes me remember a lot of the old Disney animations, and I can't really put my finger on it exactly what, but the vibe on the, like, the magical wonder kind of thing, the feeling of this being in, mind you, right? So this is an all ages rating kind of movie, but it really does, let's say, awaken something in me in terms of nostalgia that reminds me of old Disney movies. I don't know if I'm the only one, or probably being that I am probably the last person on earth to actually watch this. I think this may be a kind of shared sentiment from everyone that actually watched this, and I found this really interesting because at the same time that it is nostalgic, it is not really something that was present at the time. I know that, for instance, when we talk about magical schools, when talking about Western media, the first one that we need to talk about is Harry Potter, but at the same time, it does distance itself from Harry Potter because outside of the theming itself of the magical school, I think that this has its own legs, or really well defined, even though let's say the premise is a bit tropey in that sense. So the movie starts with the main trio of Ako, Susie, and Lotte messing around on one of the classes, and then they end up being more or less put in detention, though they have a task to do, that is organize and produce the Enchanted Parade, the namesake of the movie, that is a commemoration. This is kind of messed up in terms of theming, but whatever. It is a reenactment of the witch hunts, kind of weird, but okay. And as such, they take the examples from the last few years. They Aqua mainly sees that all the examples from the last few years have been kind of bad. Don't show witchcraft in a good light, and so on and so forth. And I mean, in a world where you have like magic as a public use kind of thing, I can understand that. And as such, she wants to actually make, if she has to make something out of it, she wants to make something that actually shines a good light into witchcraft. And as such, the movie kind of starts with her having this whole amount of ideas and stuff. And in the first act, more or less, we see her more or less having a fight with both Susie and Lotte because of let's say artistic differences and stuff. And the introduction of our new trio, Amanda. I would just cut out the surnames. It doesn't really make much difference, but it's Amanda, Constance, and Jasminka. I think I'm pronouncing this correctly. I don't know. Which each of them have been put in detention or have been grouped up with them because of their own misdemeanors. I want to point out I count this as a gag that Constance has been put in detention because of developing technology, which in and of itself seems a bit weird, but anyways. And they then start to develop stuff and so on and so forth, and we go through this, and I mean, this is really tropey, but we go through the normal kind of whole thing where Ako first fights with both Susie and Lotte, who are her closest friends, but then, and this being an all ages kind of movie, doesn't actually have anyone being strictly bad outside of the main villain, but I'll get there. So Amanda, the other three are really chill and stuff, but they you have the feeling that they don't reach the same level of friendship than the other two, and so they kind of help Ako until one point where they want to give up. So Ako tries to do everything by herself. At some point she gets everything done and prepared for the parade and stuff, and they go to do the parade, and they kind of start doing the parade, and everything kind of goes well, but then they get interrupted by something, a group of little kids. And again, this is a movie made for kids primarily, I think. A group of kids messes with their how do you say that, their sound car, something like that, and basically they lose power on the car and stuff, and have to stop the parade. But at the same time that they are like chasing the guys, because obviously the power source for the car is the white staff that Ako uses in the first movie. So this is first and foremost a sequel for the short. Don't think that they like are rebooting anything. It is a sequel. And while they are chasing this thing, something pops up from the plot B. A really huge like golem digs itself out of the ground, and then they have to fight. They fight, the golem explodes, everyone's safe, and the movie ends. This is like the highest level of the explanation of the story of this movie. And again, I cannot like add that much to what I talked about last time, because the premise is more or less the same, the idea is more or less the same. What I can point out is that in many ways I think that, and this is my view on the thing, so if you want to like ignore this part, okay, but let me like spitball a bit. So me being someone who says a lot that I am a Trigger fanboy and stuff, I am on record saying that sometimes I criticize them way too much for like the way that they, not the way that they animate, but the visual signature that they have is mostly apparent when we talk about the shonen parts of the anime. So when talking about, for example, in Darling the Franxx, whenever 02 gets into a fight and stuff, and you have, or Strelitzia in that matter, you have that whole action scene and stuff, and then there is this one moment when you can see like there is the Trigger DNA, the visual signature that they have right there. Or even to something more recent, and something that I rewatched recently too with the guys on the Discord, the Mumusume movie Beginning of a New Era, which has co-production from Trigger. There are I think multiple scenes. There is one specific scene at the very end where the Trigger visual really comes out, but it is an action scene, right? So what I'm trying to say is that for the most part, whenever I say whenever I talk about Trigger visual signature, it is on action shonen kind of anime. But in watching this, I am reminded of a different part of, let's say, a fork of the Trigger signature, where there is this not fluid but this cartoony animation, something. And this is the closest thing that I can like bring reference to. It is the Mako monologues from Kill la Kill specifically. That in itself carries a different signature. It is still Trigger, but you can clearly see that the vibe is different, the composition of the scene and stuff. And I see a lot of that same Mako DNA on Ako here. Bearing the name, but anyways, and not only on her specifically, but whenever she starts like rambling to her friends and they start to like discuss stuff and whatever, it does bring out that fork of the Trigger visual signature. And I just thought that this was really interesting to actually watch, because it is not a facet that we see most of the time. It is not like the main thing that they do, not at the very least, not the most famous thing that they do, but they still do it. And in that sense, I thought it was really interesting. Other thing that I wanted to talk about is how cute, how the little things in this anime feel like they just sit right. I have someone, I will not remember the name now, sorry, but someone in the last episode, commented on YouTube about how wholesome a Little Witch Academia is. I would say that one step after being wholesome, it becomes cute, because it is wholesome from the get-go. This, from the premise to the visuals to the way that they present everything, is really wholesome in itself. But I would say that it goes one step further and becomes really, really cute. The premise is cute, the characters are cute, this story is pretty cute. The whole thing is just sits right. The little sentimental parts when Ako understands what she's done wrong, and then they kind of making up, and a lot of singing, and it sits really right with me. Like, feels really cute, really just cute, just adorable. They are all like really adorable in that sense that it just feels comfy, cozy, good thing to watch, and so on and so forth. In that sense, I think this movie is kind of perfect in its own sense. Outside of that, and this is maybe my last point for this discussion, sorry, but I don't have that many things to actually add from last time, because again, I just feel like I recommend this series from the get-go, not only because it's Trigger, but because it is a good anime. Outside of that, and is that the Trigger DNA doesn't actually let them go out of their way to actually do something different with the storytelling. What do I mean by that? Is that why in the fuck do you have all these cute like parade, Enchanted Parade premise, like doing a show and stuff, and at this end of the fucking movie you have to have a cool fight, and this is coming back to all my and this is something that I harp on about a lot. This comes back to all of my discussions on previous or other Trigger series, is that whenever there is the zenith of the ending of the series, they will put a cool fight by the end. They did. It began with Gurren Lagann. Painting's talking about not counting, specifically because there's the whole kind of 15 years to do the second season. So, but the second season had a lot of fights, but you know, and the one that to this day I cannot like fathom, the two that I cannot fathom is first Kisniver. Kisniver didn't actually end with a fight as per se, but the ending is not doesn't feel right, is not built up well, and in that sense it was one of the worst endings in my opinion. And then there's the second one, but this is maybe just me and my pet peeve that towards the end they fucked the whole series up, darning the Franks, because oh my god, man, why did you have to like put 02 in the fucking robot? Like, come on, this is not Evangelion. From what I know, some of the people that that founded Trigger worked on Evangelion back in the Gainax days, but at the same time I don't think that we do need a cool fight every time. I know that it is a vibe, and I don't, I mean, like, we don't need to, but if you want to, please, like, be a bit on it before actually throwing this, because otherwise we will have something like Kisnever, and Kisnever was not great. I cannot prove it, but anyways, this is just me, like, wishful thinking kind of deal. I know that whatever they do, I will just, like, cream over, so that there's no difference really. It's just me criticizing something that doesn't need to be criticized, whatever. Anyways, so there's this B plot about, and I say this is a B plot, this is not really like developed whatsoever. It's like 2 scenes of, oh yeah, we need to, some workers just appear, like, oh, we need to, like, dig this site for constructing something. Oh, there's a plaque here saying this is a holy site or whatever. Oh, we buried some kind of evil spirit or whatever. And then they go there, they mess with the site because they need to work, and then we have this shot about the mayor being kind of a whatever guy, a bad generic like guy that doesn't actually understand whatever he's doing. Then they mess up, and then that's why by the end of the movie appears a huge golem to fight them, and so on and so forth. Nice that, and again, this is 2015, right? So I can kind of say this more or less, even though the second season of Symphony Gear didn't actually come out, like, I think 1 month earlier than the release of this movie. But I thought it was really cute the way that they did the final attack, with both Lotte and Susie actually getting the white robes and stuff together with Aqua to actually fire the huge bow and stuff. It's pretty nice. Remind me a lot of Symphony Gear, even though the timeline wise it doesn't actually like sit right, because I think that the end of the second season was way after they had finished producing this, but whatever. Even though it feels kind of in the same vein, I know this is a nonsense parallel, but either way, I just wanted to mention it. Again, Diana is Maria for that's it for me in terms of references. It's enough of a reference, whatever. But yeah, in summary, right? Because this review has been a huge mess. Hardly can call it a review, really. Really great movie. It is a sequel for the first one, so if you're gonna watch this, watch the short one first. I'll talk more about the series next episode. I have high hopes. I have somewhat high hopes for the anime itself, because if they keep up the same quality of this, there should be no problem really. Outside of that, thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in, and I hope stick around for next time. Bye.